Hey everyone, hope you guys are having a good one. This video is a little different. This is more of kind of like podcast style. I'll have some background gameplay, but this is just me and Hynra kind of talking about the state of the game, offering a few solutions, giving some perspectives, kind of just, discussing what a lot of you already know of probably the worst sandbox ever in the history of the game. And I know there's been a lot of times that we've said that, and the worst sandbox of all time really gets kind of thrown around a little lightly, but I mean, for those of you guys who have played this meta, I think it's pretty fair to say this is rock bottom. And yeah, we kind of just talk about some stuff. I'll have a little bit of gameplay in the background. If you're just here to watch some crazy GL plays, then maybe not the video for you. You can watch another one. I'll have more coming out when Trials comes back over the weekend. But yeah, for those of you guys who kind of just want to hear me and Henra talk about the standard of the game and what we think could fix it, what could be better, then yeah, this is the video for you. It's pretty long, but best way to view it is probably if you're doing something else, you can put it on your other monitor and listen to it, or just don't watch it if you don't want to. But without further ado, let's just get right into it. All right, what's up, y'all? Today we're gonna be talking with Hinra a little bit about the current state of the meta. Hinra, how you doing, bro?
I'm doing good. I just woke up.
Yeah, yeah. What are you doing now? Playing Marvel Rivals? Just
Yeah, I'm just in the practice range
gotcha.
or doing shit, so I can
Well, I know we
do
don't
something.
really want to think about Destiny 2 right now, but I think it's important that I don't know. The game's just in such a bad spot, and I feel like it would just be a good time to I don't know, just be kind of honest and take a little bit of the emotional aspect about some of this stuff where it's like, when you're in the game playing and you're getting killed by Invis Hunters and shit over and over, you get pissed off, right? You get emotional, fuck Bungie, fuck this, but
Yeah.
um I think I just kind of wanted to talk to you today about I don't know, just some of the core principles of PvP balance that Bungie just isn't delivering on right now. So, is there anything you want to particularly start with, or if you want to just go
What I
into
want to
talking
start
about?
with,
Yeah.
I think before we go on in this, I'm not a good player. I play the game like for fun, right? So
Okay.
in my perspective, right, I think before March 5th the game was better. That's my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. I
But
want to talk about
that's
that too a
because
little bit. Yeah.
I think a lot of things in the game are broken. You can like one shot with a bow. You can like do a lot of shit, right? There's the meta, but there's also off meta. But right now, if you're not using the meta, you're kind of like fucked,
Yeah.
right? You're kind of like you're forced to use the meta or you're dead. I mean, you can use Dawnblade, you can use like whatever if you're really good at that game. But I don't know. I think the game is better when everything is OP. The problem right now is that only RDM is OP, so you're forced to use RDM only. But when everything was OP, you can look at like you can use anything. Um, but right now, I don't think Bungie can work fast enough to the point where they can balance like things in the game fast enough if they want to make a change, um, which might like incentivize them to not do anything in the future because they might do something like this again, which is like a bad thing in my opinion. Because I think what they're trying to do is a good thing, but their inability to change it fast enough when it's OP is a bad thing. Do you understand?
Yeah. No, I get that. I think my perspective's a little different actually. I think we've Bungie have proven that they do not deal with these bad metas fast enough, right? And we've had them over the years, and somehow they just keep getting worse and worse. And we saw it with the Redrick stuff. It's like it's kind of insulting, the shit that they do, where it's like, oh, -5 aim assist, or oh, -2
Yeah,
handling. It's like it would have been better if you just said nothing. And I know that's crazy. And Bungie's perspective is probably, hey, we're gonna do stuff and people are gonna hate it anyway, so we might as well not do anything. But I just I physically, I get it with Final Shape, for example, right? You have to sell copies. It's a big DLC coming out, so I understand why the Final Shape abilities were super broken, right? It makes sense. Prismatic as a whole was always going to be difficult to balance the PvP, PvE kind of, power fantasy versus balance. So I want to give them, I look at that and it's like, all right, I kind of get it. It sucks. Should have dealt with it a little better, but whatever, I can
yeah,
understand it. But now, with the new season stuff, we got on the prowl and the new Titan shit, right? I can't remember what it's called, the bolt charge stuff. And it's like, you know, I'm pretty sure those two are free updates, right? They weren't
In,
like
yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I think they're free updates. So it's like you don't have to go out and sell the product, right? So and the fact that they talked about on the prowl as this like PvE ability was just ridiculous to me. Whenever it came out in the live stream or whatever, when they showed it off or like talked about in the TWAB, it's like they're saying, oh, it's gonna be great. You kill a fucking Dreg over here, and you kill an Acolyte over there, and Invis, and your teammates get ability energy. It's like I'm hearing this, and it's like this is just gonna be abused in PvP, and it's like I feel like they knew that, and
I mean,
the way that they talked about it was just like trying to shield people away from it. But like, as someone who can read between the lines, like, what's the point of this on the prowl shit? Like, why? I feel like there's so many different ways that they can make really fun, unique things for PvE. Like Bungie are incredibly talented studio. Let's be very clear. The reason we all love this game is because they do things that other developers don't, right? They give you that wow factor. They build great world spaces and stuff, and they make cool abilities. Um, so the fact that they make this on the prowl ability for Invis Hunter as like a PvE thing, it was always just gonna break PvP. It's a smoke bomb whenever you get a kill on someone, that's always just going to be you kill someone in trials and there's a smoke bomb on the res, so you
I
can't
just,
grab it, right? I don't understand from Bungie's perspective why they're going this route. Like I know it's kind of all over the place, but how I see it is these two free abilities should be PvE focused with a little bit of PvP, integration, right? But what ended up happening is both of them were just completely abused in PvP. And they still haven't done
well,
anything about it because I feel like on the prowl at least is maybe I'm wrong, right? I don't know PvE, but it's probably like a little weak in PvE. So maybe if they nerfed it, then the PvE players would get mad. I don't know. It's just I just don't really get the thought process. I feel like the way that they did this was kind of just a lose-lose in all situations. What do you think about that?
I mean, I think regardless of what the ability is, whenever you put a passive, it's not really a passive aspect, right? But because like you need to go invisible, you kind of need to use an ability, go invisible. But after you activate it, it kind of stays there forever, right? So that's kind of like a
It's a
passive
simple
thing. On
gameplay loop.
hindsight,
Yeah.
on hindsight, it's like, okay, they need to kill a very specific person in order to renew their invisibility or to spawn that smoke bomb, right? Because the selection is random. And if you look at that in like a 6v6, it's gonna be like very unlikely. But in 3v3, that shit is insane, right? And I don't know. It's a CC ability as well, right? Because once you get the kill, you can't res, as you said. If you try to res, you get weakened, you get blinded, you get slowed, you get all these things for just for nothing, right? And that's just the same thing with smoke bomb. I feel like I like how Bungie's every season or every episode is trying to make something new, right? They're trying to buff something to shake up the meta. But the thing is, this episode is so much longer than seasons. Or it's not even. I don't even know if that's true. It just feels like way
It
longer
feels
for me.
longer. It does feel longer.
Right. Because you have prismatic. It lasted what feels like a long time. It took a long time to get changed. But now it's like invis only. It's not even like all three classes get to do something. It's only
It's
prismatic.
just Hunter.
Or it's only
Invis, yeah.
it's just like invis hunter.
Yeah.
And you're not even stuck on invis. People are playing invis because it's like the easiest one, the most efficient one, I guess you should say. Because realistically speaking, you can use this on anything. It should just be like as broken,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, I
But
mean,
on
we're
Hunter
talking about Invis
specifically,
here, and
yeah, on
RDMs
Invis
exist too,
specifically
right? So you could,
with RDMs,
realistically, when they nerf Invis, you could just still use RDMs on any other
yeah, exactly.
subclass on Hunter. And
Um, but I think it's like natural for people to pick Invis right now because what S stock is a primary. You get a primary, you get a free dodge. Dodge gives you Invis, and Invis gives you on the prowl. It's a gameplay loop for sure,
it
right?
doesn't help that
I don't know.
Bungie gave everyone pretty much the god
I
roll S talk off the rip for just playing 7 games of comp, right? That obviously doesn't help.
yeah, I think
Those
the
the
intent
BXR
is not
frames never should have
the intent.
gotten the lightweight buff. They never should have gotten it.
Yeah, I agree as well. Which is why whenever that thing came out, when I was like talking about it, it's like this will be insane for BXR,
Yeah,
and
we
they
were talking
released a
about
new
it
BXR
before.
farm, or
We
or,
were like,
or frame.
surely
Sorry,
not. Surely they're not gonna do it. That was
but they
our
did anyway.
understanding talking about it. But
I thought, okay, the thing is, I don't think they have any like bad intent. It's just like they want to have a new meta every episode, but they don't really have that big of an understanding of the game. I
mhm.
feel like it's
but
just not really a bad thing. Like
you're
casually, it's
right.
not a
You're
bad thing.
right. Yeah.
But like with the audience that we have right now, like after March 5th, you only have people who are like kind of like semi-competitive in the game where they want balance. They want primary gunfights, right? They don't want ability spam. They don't want any of these. But the reality of that is that I'm just gonna. This is like an kind of off topic, I guess, but like the more you incentivize primary gunfight, the more team shooting that will happen. And if
Yeah.
you're in a 1v1 situation with someone, that someone, after they got shot one time, they will run away for the rest of the game until they're full HP again. It's not gonna be a fun experience when the game's only primary, because in people's mind, it's gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna win every engagement. No, they're just gonna run away the moment you have an advantage,
Yeah, that's how
or
it
they
was
insta kill
in
you with
year
a team
one.
shoot.
I know you didn't play in year one, but when it was primary only, I mean, this is the big thing about special ammo. And Bungie says they're coming back with a new special meter. I think that's just going to be another disaster because I doubt they're going to weight
I
different
I
special
think
weapons differently. And I think if you need an
yeah,
ammo meter,
yeah.
that is important because
That is
one shot of
also another
sniper is
issue.
not equivalent to one shot of a grenade launcher, for example, right?
Yeah,
Like a shot of
exactly.
sniper gives you way more value than a
But
shot
I
of
think a
grenade
lot of
launcher.
people in today's age, in today's like whoever still plays PvP in today's standards would like that idea, right? So it's like fine to the people who likes it, but it's not gonna invite new players to play the game. Because imagine, right? Because imagine if you download D2, like you play PvE, you have all these abilities, you have all these special weapons, right? You go and play PvP, and it's only primary, and you're fighting people who are like already like really good with primaries,
Yeah,
and they're
and
just
they
like
know, a
peak
lot
shooting.
of Destiny that, this is something that I think lesser skilled players don't really understand. A lot of being a good player in Destiny is knowing when not to peek. It's
Yeah,
knowing when
exactly.
to
Positioning,
get
right?
into cover, right? So like your fight, it's knowing when you're gonna lose a fight and you can get out of a fight, right? So everyone wants to talk about primary gunfights or high skill and hit your shots. Like yeah, that's all well and good, right? But good players, they're gonna get, if a good Warlock Dawnblade player gets shot twice with a hand cannon, they're going to Icarus dash behind cover and survive, right? And that's just
Yeah,
what good players do. The
and they're just
hunters,
gonna heal.
strand players are going to get out of there with, their little invis players are just going to, I mean, go invis and fucking kill the whole team at this point. But um, yeah, it's very one-dimensional to think of, primary gunfights equals good, right? Obviously we want primary gunfights to be fun and enjoyable, and I actually think primary weapons, besides obviously the 450s, are in a decent spot, honestly. At
Yeah,
least last season, and this is kind of the main thing I really wanted to showcase of like how fucked the situation is now, is let's think back to the end of last year, so end of 2024. 340 pulse rifles are reigning supreme in the meta, right? Um, you know, yeah, they were a problem. So Bungie nerfed them. They nuked them, right? Let's be honest, they nuked them. And we learned from that. Okay, people don't like having to get challenged from super long distance, and they don't like getting two bursted super quick, right? You know, I'm probably a little biased because I was using Cold Now back then. I didn't think the 340 meta was that bad personally. I thought you at
I
least
mean
had to
that's
have.
the closest thing to like they want primary gunfights. That's the primary gunfight right
Yeah,
there.
it
You know?
is. Yeah. And 120s were good too, obviously, and 140s are pretty solid, and you know, auto rifles, SMGs are viable, right? Maybe not meta, but definitely competitive.
Yeah,
But we've gone from that where we're really close actually to a pretty solid meta, at least in my opinion. We've had the prismatic disaster shit show happen over a span of, what, 6, 7 months.
yeah,
We've nerfed things down the line. Obviously there's still outliers. Diamond Lance was a problem before the knockout, the knockout nerf, kind of thing.
yeah.
The Warlock melee is still a problem to this day. It's not perfect, right? But I felt like we were actually close to a pretty good meta. And then this season comes out, a free update with two abilities, the bolt charge shit and the on the prowl, right? And then we buff 450s, and the meta is just terrible now. And that you really can't fix it in one or two balance changes. Like this is a year-long problem that we're still going to be dealing with unless they, completely butcher Invis Hunter, which isn't really their style. They don't normally do that. We're going to be in this meta for a while. And the fact, I think the fact we haven't heard anything from them on Invis is because they don't know how to fix this. Like they've put themselves in a position where
I
it's
mean,
so difficult to fix.
they're like some people have their own like approach to like how they should nerf shit, right? A lot of things or a lot of the ideas, I guess, that people are like saying, right? When we're talking about this, it's like I would just revert the exotic, right? Would you what? I mean, what would you do for them to fix it? Would you just like revert the exotic? Would you nerf it, right? Personally, I would just be. I think RDM should only give you the free hand grip mod for free with like a little bit AE while you're hip firing. But that's my take, right? But that might just be too little for an exotic. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
what
I really don't know what they're
we're
gonna do because
it like meta wise, like outside of the RDM scope, outside of the Roger scope, meta wise, I think whatever they do in the current day, there's always gonna be hard meta that like the majority of people don't like because the reality is this game's been out for so long that people have their own like golden standards of what this game should be, and
Mhm.
it's never gonna be like that
And
anymore.
everyone has a different opinion of what the game should be, right? So
Yeah,
it's,
exactly.
at the
It's
end
just
of the day,
like
this is our perspective, our opinion, right? You can disagree,
yeah,
that's fine. If you pay for the game and you play PvP, your opinion is valid, right?
yeah.
Because
That
what's important is Bungie makes a game that works for the most amount of people, right? But it's also
yeah.
fair in a certain way, right? Some people
That
may say, some people say delete Jotun, for example, right? It's like Jotun is not a problem in the PvP sandbox, right? Low skill players are going to die to it, get frustrated, say you should get, it's not an intelligent opinion based on facts, right? To remove that kind of gun. But I think, we were talking about RDMs a little before, and I personally think they should completely revert it back to the old system and just say, hey, we tried to do something different
I mean,
here.
fair enough.
We fucked up. This didn't work. We're going to reassess how we look at exotics in the future. I think that's the best thing to do because what we were talking about before, I think exotic weapons, or not exotic weapons, exotic armor should be this thing that it plays into a certain play style, right? And some people are going to argue, oh, RDMs is supposed to play into the hipfire fantasy. RDMs doesn't just
I
play
mean,
into
so is
hipfire
Lion
fantasy.
Rampant,
It gives you
but
the
like
dodges
Lion.
back. It gives you, so much. Like it's not just the hipfire fantasy, right?
I mean, I know a lot of people want it to get reverted, but there's a lot of things that you can do because it's Hunter exotic, right? First of all, you can nerf it to like again what I said, free hand grip standards, and you can tie it to like a dodge because it's a Hunter exotic. It makes sense with Dragon Shadow. It makes sense with Wormhusk. But the reality is, right? It doesn't really matter. The reality is, it's always gonna take Bungie like a long time to change something. That's just what we've
Yeah,
experienced,
yeah.
right? It's kind of like if you expect them to have to do things any differently, it's just like there's no like observable difference from Bungie for them to even consider making that type of decision,
Hmm.
right? So that's why I used to play this game every day, right? Like D2.
Yeah.
But recently I've been playing a different game. It doesn't really matter what game, and that's because like I just don't expect Bungie to do anything about it, right?
Yeah,
That's
no,
just something
exactly. And
that I accept these days. It's just like I don't enjoy the meta. I won't play the game. Like I'm not gonna be there
mhm.
crying that other people
Yeah,
is using the
don't
meta.
bash your head against the wall just to play the game,
Yeah,
right? And but that's an interesting point because you're right. Bungie doesn't update things often enough, right? And there's probably reasons for that we as a consumer base don't understand, right? There's probably politics
yeah,
behind the scenes and layoffs and stuff like that, right? We don't have a
yeah,
perfect
exactly.
picture of that, right? So okay, fine. You don't have the resources or the way that the company is set up for some reason. You can't come out and update the game in a significant way every single month, right? Okay, that's fine. So change your style, right? Why do you keep breaking the game over and over and over again if you can't fix it, right? Because I would understand, what you were saying about making the game fun, right? It's like let's just, come out with new broken shit and let the game be chaotic and, just have different metas. Okay, that's fine if you can update it every month or so, right? But they can't do that. So if we're thinking, pragmatically, at least my perspective on things is let's look at the meta and the new things we add. Let's say, hey, is this going to completely fuck the meta? If so, maybe we shouldn't do that. Maybe we should try playing it safe for a few updates and get the
Hmm.
game into a better spot. We don't have to
Uh,
deal with these big DLCs coming out anymore. We don't have to deal with Final Shape. We don't have to deal with Stasis, coming out and completely fucking the game. You don't have to line your pockets. The executives don't have to say, "Oh, you make this OP so people buy the shit," right? And maybe it'll be boring. Maybe the game will suck, right? But, based on how Bungie as a studio works and the reality that we face, why not try it? Why not try it for a year? Just try not breaking the game. Try
I mean,
actually balancing everything. And yeah, it might be
it.
boring and stale, but I have friends who I play, Counter-Strike with. I have IRL friends, and they come to Destiny and they love the gameplay. They love, the fluidity of how it moves and stuff. And then, like the new Trials update, for example. It's like so many players have been burned on Trials over and over and over again from Bungie. And like you look at this big Trials update and Bungie's like, this is going to be amazing, we're completely changing it, we're making it better for new players, blah 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 blah, right? And it's like, okay, on paper this is all great. You go into the game and the meta fucking sucks. People don't like getting invis killed from across the map or invis fusioned and stuff like this. Like it by having these shitty metas, you are fucking the game over. Like you're trying to fix Trials, but you can't fix Trials if the meta is terrible for new players coming in, right?
I
And
think
how you fix that for new players is, there's a lot of discussion on that, right? But I don't know. I think that Bungie they aren't putting enough, like they're not taking it seriously. That this meta being in this case, this situation is just terrible, and it's people are not going to come back. Like Bungie said, with the Trials update, it's like, please, guys, I know a lot of you guys don't like Trials. I know a lot of you are PvE players, but trust us, we fixed it. It's going to be great. And then they come in and they're like, okay, yeah, the card system's great, but the game itself is not fun, right? And
yeah. So
so
it's
many
less of
people
a
have been
trials issue.
burned
It's
over
like
and over and over and over from Bungie, and they can't keep making the same mistake over and over again because it's killing their game, right? They've had 4, 5, 6 strikes now. So a lot of these PvE players, people who follow both of our channels, I know there's a lot of people out there who don't play PvP at all, right? They just play PvE and they watch PvP. These are the kind of people that you would ideally like to bring into the game, right? Because at the end of the day, it's Destiny 2, right? We're not playing Counter-Strike, we're not playing any of these,
yeah.
super sweaty or I mean, Destiny is really sweaty because of those issues right now, but we're not playing a competitive game. It should be an environment that people can just come in and
That's
play, right?
that's
But
also what I want to talk about though. It's
yeah,
just like people expect the game to be balanced, right? But I think what Bungie. But okay, first of all, I think if the game is like truly balanced, I don't think it's gonna be quote unquote fun. If it's like truly balanced, I think like if only one thing is OP, like RDM for example, it's not gonna be fun because it's only gonna be RDM, right? If things are broken, like for example, I like this is not even a joke. Like 3 days ago, I met someone in Rivals who knew me, and I was like, "Do you still play D2?" And they were like, "No, Fighting Lion was not the same." They literally quit the game because they nerfed Fighting Lion.
yeah,
They never touched the game ever again. You know? So like when things are like if everything's OP, maybe not everything is usable, but at least they're or I mean like maybe not everything is OP, but like at least you can use things, right? These off meta picks. But now it's just you use RDM or you lose or you just don't get to play the game at
yeah.
all.
It's very stale right now. It's
And
very
if
one
you
style of play is just terrible for the game. Like with Prismatic, it was broken across the board and it sucked, but at least you were seeing all of each class, right?
yeah, you're seeing one of each class. It's a new DLC. Like people can play whatever. But like, here's also the thing: if the game's too balanced, like who's gonna download D2 and play a balanced game? Like, are you? It's not a competitive game. It's a game for casual. And people also use the same argument to remove SBMM to as an idea, oh, we should remove SBMM because I don't think Destiny 2 is that serious of a game. But it kind of like they're using like the opposite argument when they're trying to like, oh, the game should be balanced because I don't know. I feel like a casual game is not a balanced game.
Yeah. And
You know?
let's go back to March 5th because you're completely right. And I think March 5th is the biggest turning point in the history of the game. For the people who don't know about it, March 5th last year, so not a month ago or 2 months ago. Um, it was the what? It was pretty
Yep.
much just the Titan Immortal Cloud Strike meta, right?
The
And
biggest issue we had back then was people zimming. Not even like
yeah,
sure it's a Cloud Strike SMU meta, but like the number one issue is people zimming. The
mhm,
number one issue right now is an exotic in the game. Unless
yeah,
you're playing in Asia, which is everyone's
mhm.
cheating. But
Yeah.
like,
I mean, cheating, legit cheating is the most
you know what's
frustrating
funny?
thing for me.
This is like
But we'll talk about
this is
that
out
another
of the
time.
line.
Yeah.
Okay, but like I
No, no,
played
no. You
Trials.
go. You go. Sorry.
I played Trials not even like 2 days ago, and I solo queued. I was matched with a 2 stack and a 3 stack of cheaters. Like I'm not even kidding. On stream, 2 stack and a 3 stack, and they're
Yeah.
all cheating. I'm
Yeah.
like the only one who's playing the game legit. It's crazy.
Yep. Yeah.
It is.
And that's more Asia, I think. NA, actually, my
Yeah.
experience, I actually rarely play cheaters. I'm gonna be honest. And I know that might not, some people might.
Apparently, what people type in chat, there's also like Japanese people in chat or like Chinese or Korean as well. They said that it's like a China like a China thing. There's like a group of people in China that's dedicated to like cheating or something like
I
that. I'm
see.
not really too sure, though. But
Yeah, in
that's the
NA
entire
it
point.
really isn't that bad. In NA, more of the issue is the legit cheaters using Zims and Rewazd and stuff
Yeah,
like this, to get anti-recoil scripts and stuff, which Bungie are evidently okay with, which is
yeah,
ridiculous
because
to me.
being
They
good at
say,
Destiny 2 means
yeah, they say,
something.
oh yeah, Rewazd is fine, nothing wrong with that. You go on Rewazd, the first thing
I don't know.
anti-recoil scripts, like okay, yeah, that's cool, Bungie accessibility features. For the one fucking guy that this accessibility feature helps, you're gonna have 100 mentally ill fucking children online abuse the shit out of this and ruin your game,
The one
right?
guy that
Like
helps
I
is
sympathize with the one guy. Let's say you're disabled, right, in some way, and it gives you that remapping your keys or whatever. I don't really understand the controller stuff. I want to be you know sensitive to that, right? There are people out there that it would benefit, but the negative side of keeping these things in the game is way way worse on the overall health of the
yeah.
game.
And
And
the what's funny is that Astacross even made a video like 2 years ago that explaining that these type of things that in the game that subtly like improves like your advantage in the game, like the people who are actually disabled understood that it's more of a bad thing than a good thing for them.
mhm. A lot of the
Like they don't even
disabled
want these things
people
in
I
the game.
talk to are really, maybe a lot of them are ex-military, so maybe their mentality is just really strong, and they see it as like they don't want
Yeah.
help, right? They try and do the best they can given the
Yeah,
circumstances,
exactly.
right? There a lot of
Like
them have really strong mentalities,
like
and
it
and
is what it
really,
is. Like,
yeah,
you know?
exactly. And
It's the game.
I know there's this guy in CS:GO, who was playing like he was playing like with his face, bro, and he's like fucking like swinging out and one deing people with his fucking tongue. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah,
It's like
like
you look
that's
at that and it's like that dude's not looking for sympathy. He knows he's in a
like
shit
he's
situation and he's like,
like
I'm
it
gonna
is what
do
it
the
is.
best I
He's
can
working.
with my
Like he's working
situation.
hard for it, right?
I'm not
He's
gonna
not
look
asking to
for
like
anti-recoil scripts with my deagle or anything like that, right? He doesn't ask for that, and I feel like a lot of disabled people don't ask for that. I could be wrong, right?
yeah.
It's possible. There, it's hard to get to the brain of someone like that, but um, yeah, I know it's kind of a tangent. We were mostly talking about the meta, but I think it is
But it's a
important
good
to
tangent.
note that as well.
It's an
Yeah,
important thing
because it's a big
because
issue
like
that I think
what it
Bungie actually deserves a lot of credit on the cheating issues, right? Because let's be honest, right? Cheating is always going to be in a video game
yeah
as a free game as well. I know for trials and stuff, you have to pay money to get into trials, but as a free game, you're always going to have cheating as a problem. And you look at
yeah.
Counter Strike, you look at Halo, you look at Destiny, all these cheating is going to be a problem
It's just
forever.
any
And
game.
yeah, they're going after these cheat developers. They're suing them in court. They're doing their part. At least maybe could they do more? Probably, but I think they're doing an acceptable, bare minimum acceptable
I agree.
amount against
I agree.
cheaters, right? But this gray area of allowing, I know they said you can't zim anymore, but they're not banning people for zimming. I see the same fucking zim clans over and over again in trials. And if they aren't zimming, they've just swapped to rewazed, and it's like
I mean,
they
do you
need to
think they can
be they
even
need to be
detect
strong about
zooming?
this. They really need to come out and say, hey, this shouldn't be allowed. This
Do
is
you
a big problem.
do you really think they can detect zooming though?
I don't know. I'd like to think so. I'd like to think
Like they
that,
can't. Like if
I'm
you're
not a game
aimbotting in this
developer,
game,
right? But
like I know like cheaters from Asia, they aimbot and they wall hack and shit like that. You don't get banned for that because like in the stats, like I don't think Bungie understands the difference between like a good player and a bad player. That's why the only people who are getting banned are like those who are like spamming grenades. Because then in your
yeah,
in
yeah.
your in your stats, it's just gonna be like 100 grenade kills, and like that's not possible,
I'd like to
right?
think that there's micro movements in cheaters that can be detected, where it's like, if
I
you're
mean
if you're
that's
using an anti-recoil script and you're shooting your SMG over, 40 meters and you're fucking beaming heads, that the game is somehow able to
that's
understand,
the
hey,
one
this
thing
this script is happening every time this guy shoots. That's not human aim. He's clearly using some form of modification. Let's
I
flag
think
him and maybe ban him, right?
I think there's an easy way to tell where you have like controller input like advantage because like that's in the game
Yeah.
maybe, but I don't know. It's a client. It's a peer-to-peer game. It's like harder
Yeah.
to detect shit like
Uh-huh.
that, right?
No, you're right. I
I
mean, we're
don't know.
not game
It's not.
devs, but surely
We're
there's
like
more
I'm
that
not
they
an
can be
expert,
doing, right?
so
Surely
like
there's more.
all I know is that I understand that it's very hard for them to detect cheaters that are not like hard cheating. So that like it's not their fault. It's like more the way the game is. But also it's their game. So like I don't know. As a player, I just don't have hope. I just don't have.
Hmm.
I really don't. Like I
Where do
don't
you
think
think
they can
that
do
that lack of
anything
hope
about it.
comes
So
from? Where do you think, like, is
the
that,
lack of hope.
yeah, like,
Okay. Here's where things get serious, right? Not
okay,
serious. It's just like this is funny more than anything.
okay.
I have a cheater on my servers for like 5 6 months. They would just keep playing trials, not getting banned. Every time they're on my team, they would throw the game. They would just like AFK. People still do that today. There's still cheater that does that in my games, but they don't get banned for 6 months. And the only reason they got banned recently was because they were win trading in comp. That's the only way they could detect him
Yeah.
because win trading is not allowed
Uh-huh.
anymore, right? With the Ascendant Zero shit. The only reason he got banned is because he's win trading, not for cheating. For 6 months, he got banned for win trading.
Yeah,
That is
that's pretty
crazy
bad.
to me. So like,
Yeah.
if you can't ban a cheater for 6 months, I'm not gonna play the game because
Hmm.
I'm playing on OCE and there's not a lot of people playing here. So you want me to queue trials, which is already like twice of a queue time compared to everything else, and you need to hope, and I have to get lucky that I'm not fighting a cheater. Like some days it is fine. There's no cheaters. Like some days there's no cheaters. But like not even 2 days ago, I was in a match filled like 5 cheaters, and I'm the only one who's not cheating. That I mean, I'm not upset when that happens. I think that's kind of funny, if anything. But like that's what my expectation of the game right now is. Just like if I play the game, I expect cheaters, and
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be mad at it. You know.
Yeah, and
I'm
you know, I
more I'm
I
more mad
think
about the meta. You know what we're supposed to be talking about right now, which is like
yeah.
the meta.
No, the
It
cheating
is more
is a
upsetting.
real thing because you also
Yeah,
have
it
to
it is
understand
a real
that
thing.
when the meta sucks and people aren't playing the game and the consumer confidence is low in Bungie actually making a fun PvP experience, because the reality is we play video games for fun, right?
Yeah,
That's the whole point, right? Then the population gets lower and the people who stay are the cheaters, right? The cheaters are always going to play because they've intertwined their personality and cheating into a video game as like a social status, right? However fucked up rationalization these people have, right?
I mean,
Especially after COVID, you see
yeah,
all these mentally ill people, just coming into games and having these little cliques. And that's another thing. These cheaters, and this is a thing that I don't really get that Bungie doesn't
I
investigate. These cheaters stick together. They don't hide. You know, like when if one gets banned, they
Yeah.
come back and they join the same
They
clan
make
with all their
they
cheating
make
buddies,
yeah,
right?
they make one clan for
Yeah, they're all
everyone
in the
who's
same.
doing the
So
same
track the
thing.
clans, track the social circles, right? You know, these people. If you
I don't know,
start
man.
hitting some of these big
Okay,
people, then it's gonna be like, oh shit, did you hear this
again,
guy got banned? This guy got banned. Okay, maybe I should be a little more careful.
okay, the meta is shit, right? But I really hate talking about, oh, why does Bungie not do this? Why does Bungie not detect this? Or like, or like, why cheaters cheat the way they do? Because at that point, you're just speculating what people can and cannot do, and it's kind of like, what if they can do it? Like, it's just like I don't like to talk about that. Like, obviously, as a player, you start to speculate when things go bad. You start to speculate, but like, I don't know. I think that doesn't really anger me anymore. Like cheaters, like they don't really anger. It's just funny to me.
Well, you're numb to it at
Uh,
this point because you
Yeah,
just
I'm
that's
like
just the reality of
like
Asian
that
servers.
that like if I want to play the game,
Yeah.
that's just normal to me. But like I'm more mad about like how you have a game with 3 class, you have a game with like 50 different exotic, you have a game with like 7 special weapons in the game, you have a game with like I don't know however many primaries there are, right? And it's hard meta on like 1 class, 1 exotic, 1 weapon. Like
Hmm.
how is that possible?
Yeah.
Like
Well, I think there's another important thing about
okay,
that in Bungie's favor actually is kind of just the YouTube landscape because every time something comes out, people just look up best build in Destiny 2. And you know, all these YouTubers are out there making best Invis Hunter. This build breaks the meta, you know, using their clickbait titles and stuff. So that doesn't help, but you know, I mean for this meta, it really is just Invis Hunter. I think Void Titan I think is also up there as you know, not just as broken, but Void in general is just such a big problem because of how powerful overshields are and how powerful all the fragments
okay.
are in the you know where
So
like you
you're
throw a
asking
nade and it weakens them and then it, you know there's so many things with
okay, so
Void.
we're talking about meta right now, right? So
Sure.
you're asking my opinion of like how the D2 meta is, and I think in my vision, a lot of people don't like DRs. They don't like damage shots. They don't like overshield. They don't like anything that kind of changes TTK, right?
Yeah.
But in
Yeah.
my opinion, in a game like this, like an MMO, I think that's fine as long as you can also counter it, right? If you have like good damage, but like Radiant, for example, right? The problem is, I think Radiant is so much harder to get than an Overshield or a
Yeah.
Devour, right?
Hmm.
So that's kind of like
Yeah.
unbalanced
They aren't
there.
balanced very well. The different buffs for
Um,
each
and also
subclass.
like the damage buff abilities are on Solar, the healing abilities are also on Solar, and also healing in this game is like gradual, like restoration is like gradual, which doesn't really work well with full auto weapons because the game is peer to peer and they don't really update. Like the
Hmm.
tick rate of the game is like so slow to the
Yeah.
point where you can constantly heal and you can constantly take damage at the same time. Where in both perspective you might be at full HP, but you just die out of nowhere sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like it is how the game is. A lot
Hmm.
of people might see that as be like, wait, how did I die? I constantly getting no. It's because the game is like slow.
It's just
It's
yeah,
not
it's yeah. But that's
designed
just
to
the
be that.
reality, right? I don't think we can
That's yeah,
criticize Bungie on that. It wouldn't make sense economically for them to put dedicated servers in this game, right? I
yeah,
know people
exactly.
want them, right? But if Valve isn't doing it for Counter-Strike, the most competitive game out there, then
Yeah,
da- you
they like it's
you know
understandable.
Bungie's not doing that shit, right? It is like
Um,
I don't think the game needs it, and there's going to be instances where, you know, yeah, you're going to get double damage, is what I call it. You know, where it's like
mm,
you're full HP and you swing, and then you get one tap by a fucking hand cannon. It's like okay, well, GG, I'll go fuck myself, right? Um, those issues are just have always been in the game, and they're just going to be part of the game based on the engine that it's on and the you know that's not something that I want to criticize Bungie about. You know, that's just reality. Making games are hard, right? Making making a video game is difficult. And this Destiny engine was a modified Halo 2 engine when it came out, right? Bungie, I know
yeah,
there was a big thing all those years ago where with Activision and Bungie, and Activision were pissed at Bungie because they delegated a certain amount of money. You know, I couldn't tell you an accurate figure, so I won't say it, but they put money aside for them to build an engine from scratch, and Bungie said, hey, we can save money if we modify this Halo 2 engine and do it this way. And now we're seeing all the issues of that, right? So, you know, that's a mistake that was made 10 years ago, and we're still dealing with the problems of it. But that's you can't blame that on any of the current devs, right? You know, that's just the way it is. They just got to deal with that shit, right? So I think it is important to recognize when we give Bungie criticism and for what things. Like, we don't criticize them for the engine stuff like that, but we can criticize them for Invis Hunter, right, and the state of the meta. They deserve a lot of criticism for
Do you,
this because they knew
do you,
this was going to happen.
I mean, that's hard to say. Like, if you see their gameplay, I feel like they're like insanely casual at the game. Like the last Bungie Foundation, their gameplay is not the best, right? I'm just gonna say they're like pretty bad at the game, right? Which is not a bad thing. But I think it's very hard for them to evaluate things like that when they don't play the game like we do. Like we might say that because we play the game a lot, right? Um, but for Bungie, I don't think it's the same
I disagree, dude.
personally.
I think
I
this
mean,
game's been out
also,
for 7 years now, bro.
do you
7 years.
remember
You should
talk?
pick
Do you
things up.
remember
You should
the?
learn. Hey, this meta was shit. This is what the meta was from what we did. We go on
I mean,
from that. Like, they should
they
learn from
haven't done
this.
they haven't done anything about like hipfire stuff though. So like, the biggest issue right now I think is like they should change things quicker, right? They can
Yeah,
experiment with stuff like new stuff like this
we'd
thing.
all like
Like
that.
I feel like RDM is something new, but I don't think it should be in the game for this long with how good it is. I think we can all agree with that now.
Yeah, I think we have a little differing opinions on this, which is fine
Okay.
because, like you said with pre-March 5th, I 100% agreed with you, right? That it's like
Yeah, I
this
think that's
game.
like
I don't
also one of the biggest
expect.
problem.
Yeah, I don't expect for this game to be balanced. I expect it to be fun, right? And have a lot of different, crazy shit going on, right? But then March 5th came out and they said, we're adding checkmate, we're completely restructuring special ammo in the game and everything to make it more streamlined. Okay, you have committed to a different vision for the game, right? And that's a
Yeah,
vision that you and me both
you
disagree with, but at the
you've
end of the
balanced the
day,
game.
at the
You've
end of the
balanced the game
day,
for 7 years. You
they've
just
gone that direction, right? They've made an executive decision, and then what happens 3 months later? Prismatic comes out, and it's the worst ability spam we've ever had,
uh
right? And it's like,
yeah.
okay, you've decided this, right? And big issue I have with Bungie is they keep flip flopping on a bunch of stuff. It's like it feels like it's like I feel like I understand where they're going with the game 1 month, and then like 2 months later, it's like we're just in fucking
I
limbo
mean,
again, and we don't know what
for
the fuck
some
we're doing.
things, they do act fast on it. Like remember like Knucklehead Radar giving you
Yeah,
wall
yeah.
hacks?
No, you're right.
They
Yeah,
did
yeah.
something for like that's not even in the game for like 2 weeks, I don't think. They
Hmm.
did something about it.
Well,
But
they were
RDM,
pretty quick about nerfing fighting light
dude,
into the
I don't
grounds,
know.
man.
I
They
don't
were
know.
pretty
They're
quick.
like it's so random. I just don't
I
understand. It's
know.
just
It's hard to see
and
like
like
where they draw the line, like
oh,
the threshold
I
of actually like emergency nerfing something or
yeah,
just
and
letting it simmer.
also another thing is like they want to be very vocal about everything, but like some questions they just completely dodge. I don't understand. I think
Yeah,
it's just fake.
I do understand as well from Bungie's perspective that you have to deal with the shitstorm that is the internet. Every time you make a decision,
Yeah,
there's gonna be a bunch of YouTubers, like me or other people coming out and people on Reddit and stuff just saying Bungie doesn't know what they're doing, blah blah blah. Like I can understand it's a difficult environment for them, but they're not doing anything to help that reputation, right? Like at the end of the day,
yeah,
if you're a developer for a big game, right? You need to understand that in the modern
yeah,
era
exactly,
there are going to be unreasonable things said
exactly.
about you. People, the internet is going to be the internet. They're going to say stupid shit. People are going to get caught up in misinformation and saying things that you would never actually say to a human being in real life, but they say it
Yeah,
online
you
because they're
wouldn't say
anonymous,
that
right?
IRL. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
like that's the reality, and I hope I think a lot of the devs at Bungie understand that, and you know you know I think they get that, but I don't also want them to see that as like, oh well, these people don't know what they're talking about, so we're just not even going to try and talk to them. Like, try and talk to us, like you might get shit for it, and we might disagree on vision and stuff,
And
but
I
for
I
for
don't think
last
that's the
year and I think the year before, they were actually really good about in the TWABs explaining their decision making. Like there was a stretch for like 6 to 8 months where I'm like, okay, I might disagree with this change, but you've
they're doing
explained
something
your
about it.
process and your position on it, and I can see why you're making that decision. I can see that this decision was based in reality, and here are the steps, and going to your vision of the game, right? And then March 5th came out, and final shape, and it's just we're in fucking limbo again. And then we started slowly getting better, which is kind of always how it works with Destiny. It's like every time a big DLC comes out, everything shit hits the fan, it's terrible, and then over time we slowly get to a better spot, and then a new big DLC comes out, we start all over again, right? That's
Mhm.
always how it's been. But now that we're going away from these big DLCs, I was really hoping that this would be a great opportunity for us just to try
Yeah,
something a little
we
different.
don't
You know,
we
try
don't have.
try. I know you don't want the game necessarily to be balanced, but I think that's the best path going forward. I think I believe me, I would love for the game just to be, wacky, crazy shit every month. There's a big balance change that like changes things and makes different things meta. I'd
I
love that, right? But they
I
don't
think that's
update the
the
game
artifact's
fast
job.
enough.
I
They
think that's the
don't.
artifact's job,
Yeah,
not really.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, they don't update the game quick enough, and I think if we're not going to update the game faster, then we might as well just try and not rock the boat as much because people have completely lost faith in the game, right? Every single meta comes out, and the people who don't play PvP, the people who they're trying to get to play PvP, they watch influencers say, like, this meta fucking sucks, right?
Yeah, and they
Over and
also
over and
ask their
over again. And
friends.
that's their
They ask their
opinion,
friends
right?
as
They
well.
ask their friends, this meta sucks, right?
This meta sucks. I'm not gonna play it. Don't play
Yeah, my
D2. I'm not
IRL
gonna play it.
friends don't play because they listen to me say it's shit, and I want to play with them. Like I want to be able to say, hey, hey man, we should play some Destiny PvP. I'll help you go flawless. Just put on a hand cannon shotgun and play your best, right? And then he's got fucking Invis Fusion pulls up behind him, maps him from 20 meters, and he's just fucking smoke bomb and gets one shotted by a
Yeah,
scatternade with the weak and shit, and it's like, come on, it's like this is the problem, right? There should, let me kind of, and I'm curious your opinion on this, Henry, because I think you'll actually disagree with me on this, and I think it might be an interesting kind of conversation. But
okay.
here's my position on Destiny, right? I think that there always needs to be low level, low skill builds in the game, right?
I
I
agree.
think you need to spec into those low skill builds. So, for example, I think probably the lowest, you know, I know there's a certain clanmate that I might offend here, but I think the Peregrine Greaves Prismatic is the lowest skill build in the game, right? And it's
Yep.
simply because you can one-shot shoulder charge someone, then get a Diamond Lance, chain a kill, right? But I'm okay with it. I don't think it needs nerfing. I don't think it's a problem at all because you have to completely spec your exotic weapon towards it. You have to spec all your weapons towards it and your whole playstyle around a certain playstyle, right? And it's very easy to counter if you use your brain and say, "Hey, this Titan's just going to run at me. This is his whole gimmick." There's counterplay to it, right? I think builds like
Yeah.
that are healthy for the game. But what I don't want to see is super brain like Invis Hunter, for example, where there's no counterplay with how Invis is pretty much like you can't see shit. Invis, like, you can't see it on your screen in a lot of cases. Like, even if it's in front of you, you won't be able to see it. It's like transparent at times with the Void 3.0 like update that they did a couple years ago. And the Invis aspect of going off radar, like there's no counterplay to it, right?
I
And it's
like
such a
the only
low skill.
counterplay.
Like, you pop your ability,
This
you pop your
this might
dodge,
be like
GG, it's over. Like, they're somewhere, you're somewhere, and it's just a fucking RNG, showdown of like, okay, who's going to see who first. And a lot of cases, these Invis Hunter players, they just use weapons that can catch you with your pants down, such as the sidearm. What is it? Division now, the two burst
yeah,
sidearm.
Division.
The Zealot's reward. Like, all they need to do is just get the drop on you, close range, and just bzz, you're dead. And then
Am I
once they kill
crazy?
you, smoke appears on your res. They walk through it, they get ability energy back, and they also get invis again, and they just go again, right? How This is the fucking problem. I don't, and
I think
the thing
there
with
is a counter to that.
RDMs,
But
the
the
thing with
problem is
okay, sorry, you go.
the problem with the counter is that you have to use the sub like because like on the prowl makes you like bright pink even when you're invis. So like the counter to that loadout is
Is
using the loadout
is
itself.
yeah.
So
That's a good point. That is a good point. Yeah,
that's
I don't know.
about
I,
it. Like,
I, I like abilities, or like I'm okay with low skill shit being in the game, but I'd like to see, the reality is shotguns are like the lowest skill floor special weapons in the game, right? So they should always be
yeah.
meta. You know, I hate
They should always
shotguns,
do that. I
believe
agree with
me,
that.
but shotguns, when you look at every single special weapon, should be the meta most of the time, right? And I'm not,
It's the
for
easiest.
those sweats who might be listening, I'm not saying that shotguns don't take skill, right? They have a very high skill ceiling as well whenever you're playing against other shotgun players, right? You know, knowing when to peek. Like I'm not discounting the skill ceiling. I'm just saying it has a very low skill floor where a shitty player can have a lot more impact with a shotgun than they can with any other weapon, right? You know, it's
Yep.
I don't know. I feel like the balancing in this game should be based on the skill, right? I look at my double GL build, for example, right? I think GLs shouldn't like they should be shit compared to these other guns. They should be weaker than shotguns relatively because they should, it's a more obnoxious style to play against, right? But at the same time, you need to have a higher skill to make it work. So you're discouraging people from using it all over, but you're still allowing it to be strong in certain cases, right?
Yeah, and also
Um,
like you have to understand, it's not just double GL that uses GLs. Like racking GLs
yeah,
uses
exactly.
GLs.
Yeah,
Like bow GLs uses GLs. So like you have to like when you're balancing a gun, like right now you're using double GL. But I always say to people like the people who wants to use your loadout, it's like, oh, what is Epicdefender's double GL loadout? I'm like, are you sure you want to use
yeah,
two
no,
GLs or
yeah,
do you just
no
want to use
chance.
a fighting line and a shotgun and do the
Yeah,
exact same
fighting
thing
line
but
and a
easier?
hand cannon or a Redrix and fighting line, like.
I'm like, why swap between two GLs when you can just
Mhm.
shotgun ape someone and
And,
get the
GLs like
exact.
special GLs especially are in such a dog shit spot right now. It's crazy, but and they desperately
But
need
people
need a
like,
buff or a rework. But
I mean,
here's the
people.
issue, right? So shotguns, fine, being OP. You look at grenade launchers, really weak because they're obnoxious to play against. I can understand that, right? Then you look at fusion rifles. Why are fusions still so powerful for what they are, for how easy they are to use, how they're hit scan weapons, super super easy to combo with other abilities and stuff to get way more value out of them than you should. Why are fusion rifles? Why are we okay with fusion rifles being busted where they have such a low skill gap too, compared to GLs where it's like, yeah, they're annoying to play against, but surely fusions are just as annoying to play against, but GLs actually take an ounce of talent, right, to use. And that's the balancing shit that kind of pisses me off, where there's like some things are just way stronger than they should be based on the skill required to
Yeah,
use them.
this is kind of like what I was trying to say. It's like I don't think Bungie really understands these kind of measurements with the gameplay that I've seen of how Bungie developers play the game. I think like I'm not complaining. I just understand like it's they're like
Yeah.
they're incapable
Well,
of
you
like
must be
trying
right.
to like
Yeah. I mean,
measure.
if they keep making these mistakes over and over and over again, I'm going to use the word
Like, yeah.
incompetence. And that's just, that's
Um,
not saying that, people deserve to lose their jobs or stuff like that, but, you
like
you've
at
had a
a
game for
certain point.
7 years. You should be able, even if you're not a good player, you should be able to pick up on things that are happening in the game. And I know there's also the PvE aspect of like we don't want to nerf, like for example, making fusion rifles not hit scan again. That would piss off PvE players, right? There's that, that the coexistence of PvP and PvE is a significant issue in balancing. But I still don't think they're doing enough in a lot of these cases.
You should also like okay, here's like the opposite angle, right? Because they quote unquote wanted to buff glaives, right, recently, and it becomes worse. Like on paper, the glaive changes should be like, oh my god, this is gonna make glaives overpowered. But the update hits, and the weapons shit. Like nobody's using glaives anymore, even though they're like not even that good before, right?
Well, that
So
seems
like,
like a more of a PvE update with the tracking for glaives.
yeah,
Like where
yeah.
they just don't give a fuck about PvP. Like that change to me seems like it was solely for PvE, which is another, which is an issue, right? Because what you do in PvE also affects PvP. You completely fucked over the PvP glaive players. Like for those of you guys who don't know, they added like tracking on the glaives now. And that's fucked over high skill glaive players because they've learned to lead their shots correctly, right? Imagine if my fighting line started fucking bending towards someone. Like I shoot like a shot 40 meters and it's like gonna perfectly hit him and then it bends and just misses, right? That's pretty much what glaives are right now, and it's like I
Yeah, I don't
just,
know.
it's just
Again, in my perspective, I just like yes, it annoys me, but like at the same time, it is what it is. I understand why it is, and I don't expect anything out of it anymore. So I'm just not. If I don't enjoy the game, I'm just not gonna play it. I'm not gonna sit there on Twitter and complain about how the game is dog shit. I'm not gonna sit there and be like, this guy can only use the shotgun. It may be true, but I don't know why you're still sitting there expecting them to not do the same thing to you three times in a row already.
Yeah, it is
You
like an
know,
abusive relationship, bro. You know, it's like
like
because we
you
love
know,
this game, and I respect you for having that mentality. Um, but I don't know. I see this game,
it's
and I think a
sad,
lot
right?
of
It's
other
kind it's
people.
kind of sad.
You're like because Bungie care. Let me be very clear about this. These it's
Yeah,
not that these
Bungie
devs
care,
don't care, right? Let me be very clear about that. I do think there's
but
just an
can you
air of
do some? Can they
incompetence.
do something
I
about
think
it?
they're just
Is the
they don't
problem?
learn from their mistakes and they continually have different visions for the game and it's just they've run out of chances for so many people now.
It also doesn't.
People
It
have
doesn't
given them
help.
so many chances to come back to the game and they've tried it and they've had a shit experience over and
It
over
doesn't.
and over again. Right.
It also
So
doesn't help that they keep firing people as well in these like big
yeah,
industries.
and yeah, and that's sympathies to the Bungie staff, right? Obviously I think it's
Like we don't know
important
what's going
to
on,
note
but
that.
like
Yeah,
on our side, that looks terrible.
yeah. No, yeah, we're not game devs. It's very clear of that. But we've played this game long enough.
Yeah,
Played
we
other
wanted to make
games.
it
I've
very
seen.
clear that this is like on our perspective, how we see things, like how
Mhm.
we like. Okay,
Yeah, it might
what does
not
the
be
gamer think?
reality in terms of Bungie, but I think the developer has an obligation to communicate that a little better. And there might be
Yeah.
politics that prevent them
But
from doing
listen,
that.
I also want to make clear that my expectation of Bungie might not be realistic, but that's just me as a player, right?
Hmm.
I don't know what's taking you guys like so long to like change RDM, something like that. So yeah, I don't know. I was just like
Hmm.
whatever, I guess, at this
Yeah,
point.
I mean the RDM thing. I don't think I brought this up before with you, but I don't think I brought it up when we were actually recording. Um, how or no, I think I did. Where it's like I like exotics being powerful for a certain playstyle, right? And like
Mhm.
you take a really unique exotic like RDMs, where it's like you shoot, you get a kill and then you can dodge like rapidly for 5 seconds, and it's like, oh, this is cool. You're dancing, right? It's like it's might not, it doesn't have to be meta, but it's cool, it's unique, it offers like an interesting play style. And you turn that into just the most broken thing ever that gives you value on every single subclass in every single capacity, even if you're not hip firing your weapons, still insanely broken, right? And you recognize that it's broken and you disable last word and DMT and stuff like that, and then you don't fix the problem and you re-enable them and you're like, oh well, we tuned it down a little bit. It's terrible, man. You play PvP, last word fucking RDM everywhere. You're getting mapped, you're getting, it's the Redrix with RDMs obviously is a huge problem. um
I think what we're doing right now, I obviously like this video is gonna come off as like us complaining about the meta, which is like fair. Everybody complains
yeah.
about the meta,
Uh-huh.
but like for me, again, I don't really like doing that anymore. Like they're not gonna do anything about. Like, do you really think there's gonna be someone watching this video at Bungie and be like, yeah, let's do something immediately?
No, no.
No, right? So like, if your problem in this game is the meta, it's not gonna change anything. You either play the game, it is what it is. You don't expect other people to not use the meta, by the way. I think that's the
Yeah, yeah.
number one
Uh-huh.
mentality
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
people have. Like they want to use off meta and they complain that other people's using the meta and they're gonna be like, oh, they're
I
so
mean, yeah,
boring.
if,
That's
if
not
someone's
their
bagging
fault.
me, if someone's bagging me and acting like a dickhead and they're using Invis Hunter, I'm gonna be like, yeah, you fucking meta piece of shit, right? But I'm not gonna go up to a player, using
Yeah,
Invis
like
Hunter, and maybe honestly, I will sometimes, right? I'll get tilted and I'll be like, oh, fucking Invis Hunter. But that's frustration being taken out on the player. It's more frustration towards Bungie, right? At the end of the day, as long as you're not cheating, as long as you're not hacking, zimming, all these other things, exploiting, anything bannable, it's fair game. You can use whatever you want, right? At the end of the day, that's the kind
you
of
can't.
game
You just.
Destiny is. It's
I just feel like you just can't blame the player for using a meta. You know.
no, I agree. Well, I can. I think that's an interesting choice of words. I can criticize them for it, but I can't blame them. I
Yeah,
can
you
say,
can't blame them.
fuck you, right? I don't like you. You're a scumbag, but I can't blame you for using it,
Yeah,
right?
because
I
like
understand why you're using it.
what people are saying to me every time is like they want to use these loadout, like they want to use bow glaive with my loadout, and they like okay, but I have to fight against this and that. I mean, that's what you have to go through.
Yeah,
That's what I have to
that's
go
it.
through.
Yeah,
That's
deal with it.
that's the that's the that's the thing that you. I woke up. Nah, I don't woke up. Like, I launched Destiny 2 knowing that I have to fight against these people,
Yeah,
right?
it's like
I
the
can choose
EULA.
to play like them, but I don't
whenever
want
you
to.
whenever you're on the title screen and you
Yeah,
click like start game, that's like the EULA, where it's like
yeah,
you accept dealing with in 3 Invis Hunters every single trial
yeah.
screen. Like
Exactly.
it's like
That's
you are,
just
yeah.
realistic. Like,
But
if you just expect everyone to use off meta, it's just like, who
mm,
does that in
no,
any
you can't
video game?
expect people to use that. But that, you're right, does fall on the developers, and they've built this system where they've been so incompetent over the years of making metas where, like you said, it'd be nice if there were a few broken things, right? And then you see a little bit more diversity, and we can complain about, like, oh, that was broken, that was broken, that was broken, right? But at least it's not just the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
But players have just learned now that every single season that comes out, every single balance change, there's always going to be one thing that is insanely broken, and they've stopped experimenting with other things, and they just go straight to that, right? Because they've done this fucking rodeo before. They've been playing this game for 7 years, some people, and they're like,
I
well,
mean,
there's no point doing this other shit. Like, the Invis Hunter's the meta. I'm just gonna use that until the next thing comes out, and then the next thing comes out, right?
I also wanna like, I also wanna say that if you play Destiny 2 PvP, I think the majority of player doesn't really care about build crafting. They just wanna use whatever's broken. Again, like what you said, they're gonna watch a video on like what's the most broken thing. They're just gonna use that, right?
Hmm.
Like, not everyone's gonna sit in orbit thinking of like, oh, what should I use,
Yeah.
right? Maybe like for the first time when you play PvP for the first time, oh, I wanna use this weapon that I like in PvE, and it's not gonna work out. It's
Hmm.
100% not gonna work out. And you
But
start looking shit like what's
that's
actually good in PvP.
that's where the big disconnect, I think, is, because PvE is the complete opposite. You look at
Yeah.
PvE and it's like, I can have all these cool unique builds, right? And then you look at
Not
PvP and it's one build.
really anymore.
No, but I mean, you're right. In
It's
terms of
more
like
than PvP though.
high level stuff PV, you're right. But even like most players don't play that, right? Like my IRL
Yeah,
friends and the casual players,
yeah, you can use pretty
they
much
find a
anything.
gun that they enjoy and they just build a build around it and they have fun with it, right? And
I
then
mean,
they
that's
go to
because it's
PvP expecting it to be like that, the PV side, and it's just completely not. And they're like, "Whoa, this isn't fun. This is intimidating. I don't want to touch this."
yeah,
Right?
because then you're competing, right? In PvE, you're just fighting bots. Who cares? But like once
Yeah.
you compete, like once you start speedrunning, you have to use the most optimal thing, or else
Hmm.
you're just gonna lose. Right? That's kind of like what PvP is in comparison. If you're not using the most optimal thing, you're just gonna get ran over and over, and that's not fun, right? People want to use off meta for fun. It's not fun to lose. It doesn't matter what you lose. Like, even if you're
Yeah.
using meta and you're losing, at least your probability of winning is higher.
Hmm.
But
But once
not
again,
losing to
it's
anything is just not fun.
I can respect your opinion of, like, it's like, this is what Bungie does, like, this is the way the game is, no need to fight against it, right? um but I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I still look at this game and I still think that they can turn it around, and they've started, and that's the frustrating thing. They've started to turn it around at so many points, but then it's like, one season of balance change, it'll be like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 3 steps forward,
It's
one
like
step
half
back, and
half,
we
right?
start making steady progress towards a better game, and then 10 steps back, and we're just in the fucking shitter again. And that's what the
That's
this
that's
meta is
always
currently. Right? And you're
that's
right, it's
always how it
always what
is.
fucking happens, and it doesn't make sense to me. I don't get how this is beneficial for Bungie in terms of a marketing campaign, in terms of finances. I don't get how this is good for players having fun with the meta. It doesn't work for anyone, which is just shocking why Bungie hasn't done something to change this, which is what I was saying to you about. I would like them to just try and balance the game. Like, I know they're not going to, right? But at least try,
Do
you
you
know.
want to do you want them to actually balance the game, or do you want them to shake up PvP, like nerf
I want
what's meta
I
and then like
think
make something else meta?
in an ideal world, I would like them to shake up the game, but we don't live in an
Okay.
ideal world. They don't update the game fast enough for that to be viable,
Yeah, because
because it
like I
ends
feel
up
like
just
they
being shitty metas for way too long. right? I
I
would
have to give them
love the
credit
game to
though,
be like that, but it's not. It's just not. They've proven that the game will never be like that with their current capabilities, and they don't
I
have
have
any
to give them
plans of
credit
changing that.
because I have to give them credit because they try to shake things up every episode, but that's every episode. You only get like 3 episodes per
Hmm.
year, which is like that's not good enough, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah,
that,
that's my perspective. I think
that
they try and shake things up and yeah, you can give them credit, but it hasn't worked for 7 years. So maybe try something different. It's this example might go over your head, but like in soccer, there's different formations that you can play. You can play 4-4-2, 4-2-3-1. Most coaches use a formation that best supports the players they have. They don't just have a formation and they just say, okay, players, adapt to this formation, no matter what. It doesn't work like that. You have pieces at Bungie, employees who have strengths and weaknesses, and you try and conduct yourselves in a way that makes the most of your strengths and diminishes your weaknesses. Now, I don't think Bungie have proven that they just, for whatever reason, the strike team or whatever, they can't come out with updates quick enough to work on this system of let's just shake up the game and do crazy shit over and over again. Because then we get in these stagnant metas and then people quit and then they come back and say next season, don't worry guys, it's all new and it's great, and then people come back a little bit and then it sucks again and then they leave again. People are going to stop coming back to PvP. People have been burnt too many times on PvP. So I think they really just need to focus on making a stable PvP environment. Maybe a little bit of the fun factor goes away, which sucks, right? I made it very clear with you that I would like to see them
mhm.
do this, kind of fun, shake up the meta kind of play, but we're living in reality. They've proven it doesn't work, right? So I'm saying they should change their approach. They don't have to deal with these big DLCs anymore coming out that, executives making them make OP broken shit that, get people to buy
Yeah,
it, right? They don't have that pressure anymore. So look at it and say, hey, let's change our approach. What we're doing isn't working. We're kind of fighting against the tide a little way, I guess is a way to say it. Like we're fighting a battle where we shouldn't be fighting. Like
it's the same thing.
let's roll with the
It's,
waves instead of fighting against the
I mean,
tide, right?
they can do that. I know they can do that. You know why? Because we went from seasonal stuff to episodic stuff, so they can do something big like that.
Hmm.
It's just that like the difference between seasonal and episodic is like, what do you gain for changing stuff around PvP, right? Does PvP really like benefit them all that much? Which they do, maybe, right? Because the last few players who actually still play this game probably is just like either the hardcore PvE or like the hardcore PvP kind of,
Hmm.
you know. And also, do you really think like balancing PvP is gonna return player to the game, or is it just
I think
gonna
over time it
satisfy the
will.
remaining
I
people?
think over time it will. I think
Okay.
there's a lot of people out there who want PvP to be good, and they've just been burned so many times on it.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, because
with
that's what I
Destiny,
was trying to like kind of compare. It's like if you balance the game to what it is currently, are people going to come back? Because again, we've discussed that people like different parts or different eras of this game where they think the game is the best at XYZ moments, and they're not going to come back unless it goes back to that exact meta, or not meta, like that exact sandbox, right? You might like Forsaken era, you might like Beyond Light era, you might like
that's true.
this era, you might like before March 5th or after March 5th. I think that's like the biggest split factor is before March 5th or after March 5th. Because the people who likes March 5th likes them very much. The people who doesn't like them at all.
Hmm.
So like you
No,
can't
you're right. There
really.
are a lot of different people out there and a lot of different opinions on the game, right?
Yeah,
And like you said, everyone has their own favorite
and
meta,
that's
and but
and that's kind of normal because the game's been out for like 7 years,
yeah,
right? So
no,
people
I
have their
agree
own
with
ideal
you.
eras.
I agree with you in a certain spot, but I also look at times like 30th anniversary came out, and it was the longest time we had like without like a big DLC. They delayed it, and
Yeah.
from what I remember, I think that was the year they delayed it for the first time. What was that? I think before Shadowkeep maybe, or before I can't
Uh,
remember.
it's like
Um,
before Witch Queen.
before Witch Queen.
Wait, is it Witch
Okay.
Queen?
And
30th anniversary. Yeah, I think it's before Witch Queen, if
yeah,
I'm being
and the
honest.
game, and every time I ask people what was your favorite meta, they all go to that point because it was stable, because they could go in and there wasn't this super obnoxious thing that they'd have to deal with, right? There were,
Can I be honest
yeah, of
about
course.
that? Personally, I think that exact sandbox was gonna be way worse if there's way less people playing the game, because that was when Antia's wards was
Hmm.
still like
Arbalist,
insane.
yeah,
Not
Arbalist.
even Arbalest. It was like main ingredient, the Zur ingredient. Remember that? So Titans can theoretically just like main ingredient Antaeus wards, but since there's a lot of players playing the game back then, because guess what? It was before March 5th. People can just use whatever they want
Uh-huh.
and still do like just fine. They're not gonna get like absolutely fucked, right? People still want to play the game, and also again, no ability spam because it's still like the subclass tree. It's not like subclass 3.0
Yeah,
yet,
yeah.
right? Um,
I miss that
that's just me
subclass
though.
tree, man. I miss
That
it.
that that I
Top
I feel
tree
like that's
Dawn,
just
man.
me.
I miss it.
I mean, do you agree with me here? Where if the game is like what it is right now, in like if today we have 30th anniversary again, people would just use Antaeus wards and main ingredient.
No, I think nowadays, and this is another thing that Bungie's gonna have to do. Like over time, the way people play games has changed, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
people,
that
back
too.
people think of Halo Reach back in the day, and it's like I used to hop on and just have fun with the game. Games are much more competitive now. People want to win. People play
Yeah,
to win. They play for their KD. They play for their stats more. There's a lot of mental illness out there. Maybe I won't say mental illness, but
I mean,
kind
when
of
they start cheating, they are
anti-team.
kind of
Yeah, but anti-team kind of mentalities. Where it's like I care about my stats, and I'm just gonna sit in the back and try and have a high KD. Like I'm gonna play for my stats rather than just going out and playing the game, right? Because they want other people to think they're good at the game, right? And what do people think is a big indicator of how good you are? Your KD. I see it all the time. People ask me, "Oh, how do I raise my KD?" Don't fucking worry about raising your KD. Play for value for your team. Play
yeah.
to have
I
fun.
mean,
It's a fucking video game.
again,
Who cares if you're bad at Destiny 2? I mean, come on, look at this fucking
you
game,
have
guys.
you
Look at
have
this game.
the
It's dog shit. You work a 9 to 5 and you're a fucking electrical engineer and you went to college and you're working on important infrastructure stuff and you come home and you lose a game and like this fucking 10-year-old's teabagging you and telling you suck. Who cares, bro? It's fucking Destiny. It's not meant to be
I want.
competitive, right?
I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to fence sitting here. I'm not fence sitting when I say this, but like I also want to think that when people play in the back of the map, it's just their way to like this is the most optimal way that I can play the game for my
Hmm.
team, right? Because
Yeah, maybe.
on the other spectrum, like you don't want to just go in and die every single time. You're just like, what am I doing? I'm just feeding,
Hmm.
right? So that's another
No, you're
thing,
right. That's
right?
that's a good point. But you do know like there are some people who just do it for
Yeah,
stats,
yeah,
right? And there are
it,
some people who,
definitely, definitely.
it's
I think again, a
yeah,
lot of
it's
people say this, but third-party websites for Destiny 2 PvP has ruined the way people play the game.
yeah,
They
yeah.
care
And
way
that's
too
just
much on
across the
some.
board for all games too. It's not just a Destiny issue.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. The
It's just
moment
yeah.
you can, I mean, if you can private your profile, maybe people just don't give a fuck. But then again, if you private your profile, cheating will become way worse.
Yeah.
Way, way worse in this game, right? In other games, you can detect cheating without like what it's just in other games, like whatever. You can detect cheating. In this game, you can't detect cheating. It's just something that it is the Bungie is incapable of doing. And
Yeah.
that's not like a rude thing to say. It's just like I understand that you guys can't do that because like no way they're allowing 6 months or like 5 months for a cheater to just aimbot wall hack. And what's that saying to me is like they don't have anything to kind of detect that, so they're just looking at the stats. And I don't think they understand the difference between a good player and someone who is cheating, which is like
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, it's
You
it's
can't do
tough,
anything
man.
about it. It's just like whatever. Cool.
It's tough, dude. Yeah, the game's just in a very precarious spot right now. So we've been talking for fucking what,
Yeah,
hour
I mean it's
12 minutes at this point. Um so I think
it is
let's
what it
just
is.
start wrapping it up a little bit, I guess.
Okay, okay.
Main things we wanted to talk about, right? March 5th with the game, big problem I have was the March 5th update saying like, "Hey, we're going to change the game, we're going to make it a certain way," and then immediately it goes to shit, right? and then we've slowly made the game better over the year, over the months after final shape, and then we've gotten the game to a pretty decent spot. We're seeing progress, and then we still have these big bombshell drops from Bungie that just fuck the game completely, and it just doesn't make much sense, right? And that's something that I think really needs to be addressed from Bungie. I don't expect them to be perfect. I don't expect them to not make
Yeah,
OP broken things,
definitely.
but the
We're not
reasons
trying to say that.
everything about Invis Hunter and RDMs and everything was completely telegraphed for anyone with a fucking brain who's played this game. I'm sorry. I don't care if you're a 1.0 KD player, a point 0.5 KD player. If you work on the dev team and you sit there and you shoot the guns every day and you move the stats and see how they work, you should have predicted this. This
Mhm.
update was unacceptable, and the fact they haven't done anything about it, and the tiny nerfs to Redrix over time is even more unacceptable, right? But that's kind of more what we'd expect. Um, and yeah, kind of the whole point of this video was just to talk about it. Like, I really don't know any solutions, unfortunately. I like to be a guy who, whenever I see a
It,
problem, offers solutions. But with Invis Hunter, I don't see any solutions to nerfing it, honestly.
here's
And
like,
this is
as a
just
realist,
a shot in the foot from Bungie. Like, they didn't have to do this.
here's my thing on like the speed of the change stuff. Okay, so you're saying that RDM should be like a red flag from the get go, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, they didn't even notice there's a bug in the game if you play PvP since Final Shape, where if you die and you have two charges of any ability but your melee, it will reset the ability completely. So you only have one charge.
Interesting.
And that's in the game that they only got fixed this episode. So it's been in the game for 2 episodes.
Yeah.
So that's the scope of the thing. So if you
Hmm.
think this is bad,
No, but
and
that I can give him a little more credit on, like, a bug here and there, but this was a deliberate effort. I understand with Prismatic, you come out with Prismatic, right? And it's really fun in PvE. It opens up a lot of different builds, and you're like, okay, we should allow Bungie to, go crazy with PvE and have a little bit of the fallout in PvP. I'm okay with that, right? I can understand that because at the end of the day, this is a PvE game with PvP in addition to it. But on the Prowl, Invis Hunter offered
yeah,
very little fun factor in PvE and has completely fucked PvP. And these risk reward, it just doesn't follow logic, right? They should have known that this was a bad idea, that this wasn't going to work, that this was going to be a niche thing in PvE and fuck all the work that they've done over the last couple months with PvP. And they continue to do this over and over and over again. And I'm fucking tired of it. And I wanted to talk about it today and I want to bring your thoughts on it too, because let's be honest,
yeah,
you're not playing the game much anymore. Like, you're defeated, and I
yeah.
get that. I've been
I used
defeated
to
at
play this game
times, right?
every day.
Yeah,
I used to play this game every day,
and
but now it's just
exactly, we
whatever.
fucking love this game. But if people like us, and I know there's a lot of people out there as well who are like us, and I'm not saying people like us, off meta players. I'm saying people like us who have played the game for a long time, right? Um, it's
Yeah.
just how many more chances are Bungie going to get, right? And we all want to see this game succeed, but um, I
Here's
don't
my
know, man.
conclusion, if
Yeah,
I may.
let's hear it. Go for it.
Last like pre-March 5th meta, Immortal SMG. People are saying the same thing. How long is this gonna keep going? I think it's gonna cycle again and again and again, just to be a realist here. And also, I kind of like forgot already here, but I think, in conclusion, RDM OP. They need to change something about it. As stock as well. Like, I think lightweight buff should not apply to it. I think the gun is already really good. A lot of people are already using, like, not a lot of people, like some people that uses BXR knows the ups and downs of using the weapon already pre buff.
It was strong
And that's
pre-buff.
also like kind of
They were already
that's also
strong.
the same thing with what do you call that, swarm grenades before it got buffed in final shape. The people that I know who uses swarm grenades, that shit was annoying, but they got buffed anyways, and now it's way worse than what it was because they can't make it to what it was because everyone would still use it and realize how good it was. So yeah, that's kind of like the conclusion here. It's like, yeah, things need to get changed. I agree, but like, it's not gonna happen, at least for a
Yeah.
while.
Here's the best way
If you want
I
to.
can sum up my thoughts, right?
Okay.
I understand that there are going to be metas where bullshit happens and the game sucks for periods of time. I understand that, right? But I'd like for in those cases, I'd want there to be a reason for it. With like Final Shape, right? The fun factor in PvE was off the scales with all the new shit they came out with. So okay, PvP sucks for a little bit. I'm going to complain about it. I'm going to be annoyed, but I understand it because it's offering more value to the game in PvE. I can't and don't understand adding something like On the Prowl to the game where it offers very little in PvE and completely fucks PvP, right? There
Mhm.
the risk reward scale just doesn't make any logical sense. And that's the fucking shit that we can't accept from Bungie, right?
By the way,
We need to be reasonable and
I
understand
don't.
that with Prismatic, like it sucked, everyone's complaining, haha, ability spam, blah blah blah, right? They came out
Yeah.
with I think actually pretty solid changes. Minus 15% ability recharge to just Prismatic. Like they were finding ways to make Prismatic still OP in PvE, but also balance in PvP. I think they actually handled Prismatic pretty well in hindsight. Looking back on it. Obviously, during the time, we're all emotional. We get killed by a fucking Diamond Lance. We get pissed off and say Bungie are stupid,
Yeah.
right? But that is the Bungie I expect, right? And for them just to do this Invis Hunter thing in the current state of the game with no pressure from executives trying to make them sell copies for anything like that, no external factors that at least I can understand, that is just unacceptable to me. And that shit cannot fucking stand. And to have it the same season when you rework trials and ask everyone to come back to the game is just comical. It's fucking game suicide. This season is frankly the nail in the coffin. And I don't think Bungie are going to be able to come back from it. I really don't. Maybe that's being pessimistic, but if they don't learn from this significantly, then like if this shit happens again, it's over. It really is.
Um, I don't think we clarify enough why on the prowl is a problem. Or I think this is like it's just me. But CC, do you know CC like crowd control,
Okay.
right? Before on the prowl, we had for somatic hunter. It was pre-nerf smoke bombs. You dodge, you slow them, and your grenade scorch enemies. All of them are like kind of CC because like the grenade, it's not really a CC, but it's like an AOE thing that like scorch you for a while. The dodge slows you. The dodge is like a 70. Well, it's like a minus 70 handling stat line or whatever like that. It also like slows down your reload speed. It slows down your character. I think it's a very I don't want to say bad game design. I just think it's like for a game like Destiny 2, crowd control that doesn't allow your characters to do anything is very oppressive,
It's very
right?
unfun to play.
Like
Yeah. And they
yeah,
should have known.
especially
They should have known for the little.
especially with
Yeah.
on the
Sorry. Go ahead.
prowl, which gives you more melee. And the other problem that we had this season was well, I didn't really have a problem with it, but a lot of people do because of the playstyle that the game incentivizes. Storm Skeep, the
Hmm.
aspect that
Yeah.
just you stand on one spot and you get benefit for just standing there,
Plus the
right? It's
artifact
not just
perk,
like
right? That gave
yeah,
you.
it's not
Yeah.
just like standing. It again, it's the same issue with Bastion, where you put down a barricade and the effect lasts for as long as the barricade is there. It's not just a one-time pop. So it's incentivizing a play that is very passive against other people who are passive. So that means you can kind of see
Hmm.
their potency because if you're using on the prowl or if you're using Storm's Keep on a player like me or Epic, we move a lot. Like it doesn't really
Hmm.
affect us,
Yeah.
right? But for the average player who just peek shoots, they're gonna get hit by that and they're gonna be like, this shit is overpowered. That's why it got nerfed,
Yep.
or that's why what is it?
They
Did
disabled the
the artifact?
artifact in PvP,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think first of all, passive free stuff, and second, I think it's the main issue, which is like crowd control. I think smoke bombs is the big issue this season, And the reason why it is more of an issue this season than last season is because we experienced the same thing last season with prismatic. So it's still like, sure, you're changing from prismatic to
You're changing the
invis,
color. Yeah,
but but
that's
but
it.
it's still smoke bombs. The
Uh-huh.
problem is still smoke bombs. And yes, you nerfed it, right?
That nerf
But
was significant too. To be fair to Bungie,
yeah, it was
it actually
significant.
it was a very helpful buff, or a very helpful nerf, yeah, a helpful buff to other players, playing against it. Um,
Yeah,
but
but it's
they
not
got
like
to do
you're
more.
going out of your way to play like an arc hunter, which haven't
Yeah.
been meta for a while. That's why it feels very fatiguing right now, at least
Hmm.
in my opinion.
I agree, man.
That's
I
about it.
agree. I mean, we could talk about this shit forever, but I think we've kind of covered most of the things we want to say. So
Yeah,
appreciate you taking the time, staying up late.
yeah, no
I know
problem.
it's
I've
6 a.m.
always
for
talked
you,
about this.
so thank you for staying up late
Because
and getting this
I
done.
know people like me. Okay, I'm sorry, but like every time I stream, people like talking about this type of shit. That's why I'm like really set on my mind of what I expect, what I want, right? What I think is the problem is. Because I really want to think into it. I don't want to be here being like, okay, they should just remove this from the game, because that's not a good
It's
mentality in
not
my
helpful.
opinion.
Yeah, it's not helpful. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not
All right.
realistic to actually getting real change.
Yeah, because you're not gonna go anywhere if a new change is gonna get removed every single time. You're not going
Hmm.
anywhere. Sure, you might learn something though.
I mean, hey,
All right. Anyways,
I'd love to delete Invis Hunter, but that's not a solution. But yeah, thanks for taking the time, man. Appreciate having this kind
no
of chat.
problem.